System D. Oh, System D. You've been a complete, utter, unmitigated, incredible success. Here we have a post from someone who went from initially being just a massive System D hater. System D is going to be the death of Linux. This is the worst thing we could ever do, to someone who's come around to it and ultimately now believes this was a good thing for Linux. This is someone where back in 2013, the sky was falling. We're replacing plain text logs with binary logs. This is the worst thing we could ever do. This is the death of the Unix philosophy. How dare anybody even consider, even slightly have this idea of an approach to handling anything on Linux? But now it's 2025, and I'm here to repent, which is definitely a great choice for people that do think that, even now think the System D is like a cult and all of this good stuff. Not only is System D a worthy successor to traditional init, but I think that deserves a defense for what it's done for the landscape, especially given the hostile reception it initially received and somehow continues to receive for some reason. Honestly, I think the reason why people are still negative about it is the same reason why people are still negative about KDE. And the reason people are always going to be negative about GNOME. Even if GNOME was to shift course and start being like KDE. Even though KDE is considerably more stable than it was during KDE 4. Even though every distro has adopted System D, there was a time and that initial first reaction, that's really difficult to change. It is very difficult to get people to change their mind, because if they change their mind, that means that they might be wrong. And if they're wrong, well, they can't be wrong. That would be like an attack on them as a person, and a lot of people are really bad at sort of rebroaching topics that they've already come to a conclusion on. No software is perfect except for TempleOS. Also anything I write, and you know it's perfect because I wrote it, and I wouldn't write software that's bad. Moving on. But I think that System D has largely been a success story and proven many dire forecasts wrong, including my own. I was wrong. Whilst you absolutely could run a system without System D, it was done for a very long time, even back into the Unix world, and you still can run a system like that today with things like Gentoo, with Artix, Devuan, LFS, and a bunch of other systems. There are some things that are System D reliant. In those cases, you can't run those, but 99% of things you can do. That doesn't mean the old status quo was perfect, that there was no reason to change anything. Init scripts of varying quality with janky dependencies and wildly varying semantics were frustrating. It's sort of wild to me that I was working as a full-time software engineer during an era in which we were still writing bespoke shell scripts to orchestrate process management. Lost or unmanaged processes, the weirdness of S99 type directories for dependency ordering, so trying to get a directory to be executed after everything else, and different interfaces into etc/init.d scripts were all real problems. During the Linux init wars, yes, that is actually a term people were using at the time. This isn't something that has been reapplied to history. This is a post from 2014. Why System D is winning the init wars and others aren't. And this is not the only post like this. A lot of people were using this term. This is something that people were actually saying, and this is how seriously people were taking their init system. Most people nowadays wouldn't have a clue what they're running. If you told them they're using System D, okay. If you said they're on a system using OpenRC or something else, okay. It's not something most people ever actually think about. Anyway, during that time, you could probably write an upstart S6 or OpenRC init script that didn't have too many problems, but even then, you're supporting a variety of service management configuration formats with slightly different behaviors. I wrote services for all of these different init systems, and the experience wasn't super. Many of the deficiencies of traditional service management are more obvious in hindsight, whereas bare bones init was mostly about handling and or reaping orphan processes, and trusting a systemd-based PID1 is also big for sandboxing and dependency management. We'll get to timers, sockets, and mount in a little bit. And this here is a really good point. more obvious in hindsight. I think a lot of people would really benefit from actually trying things out, not just 15 years ago, and then it's like, oh, I don't like it 15 years ago, I don't like it now, but like actually getting a modern, like refreshed take on the way things are. Actually see what it is like, and is this a rose-colored glasses situation? Do you hate it because you always hated it, or are things different than you remember? Consider that the two primary ways that older init systems manage processes, either foreground or forked, were and are fully supported modes in systemd. Modern systemd provides for more nuanced I'm ready signaling, apart from is the process alive via type equals notify. But this kind of backwards compatibility really helped bridge the legacy gap. The systemd authors even wrote generator code to help migrate old services. So this is something I think a lot of people don't even realize, that it was deprecated back in 2023 and now being phased out. Systemd had support for sys via init scripts. Like, that's something that was just in systemd and has been there for a long time. So even with systemd doing things in a slightly different way, even with systemd not being the traditional way things are being managed, it was still trying to bring that older approach in and trying to make it as easy as possible to migrate to this new system. Now, the INI style configuration format of systemd is not a panacea. It doesn't solve every single problem. At the same time, it did make things considerably easier for system administrators because it doesn't require a Turing-complete configuration format or a domain-specific language. If you look at this, even if you've never looked at systemd, it's very easy to know like what this is doing. It's very easy to understand how to break this apart. You're in some category called service and setting the value of type to forking. Now, you might not know exactly what that does. You might not know exactly what you can put here to do different things, but it's very easy to break down the problem. And when you can break down the problem, then it's very easy to learn how to change it by reading the documentation. Obviously, real systemd files get more complex than this, but it still follows that same sort of idea, where even if you're not entirely sure what you're looking at, it's pretty easy to break down the problem. Systemd deliberately chose backwards compatibility, not one-to-one, things would obviously need to be rewritten, but backwards compatible functionality, simple configuration paradigms, so it's very easy to understand what you're doing and very easy to pick up how to write these files and to proactively support and help folks migrate. And this is one of the really good things about Pipewire as well. Now, Pipewire obviously has its problems. As I'm saying this, you're probably hearing my audio crackle. If not, hey, Pipewire is doing slightly better than it normally would be. So there are problems, but if you were using Pulse Audio, which you probably were, going from Pulse Audio to Pipe is changing a package and everything basically just works. There are obviously problems with professional workflows using Jack, but professional workflows are always gonna have problems. But for the majority of people, it is basically just zero thought, which is good. The problem is it does make it then difficult to get people to fully migrate over to Pipewire because the Pulse Audio solutions are so good, you're not seeing as much movement to the native Pipewire solutions. There's some, but it's been slow. And that's much smoother than it's been for Wayland. Obviously, X-Wayland does exist, but there's a lot of things that you cannot do with X-Wayland. And the whole root for Windows, that's only a very recent thing that has actually been good. You weren't able to run full X11 desktops in an X-Wayland window, 10 years ago without a lot of limitations. Now that you can, I do expect to see things be a little bit smoother going forward. Now, logs, journal D, binary files. This is here, and past me hated it too. The primary complaint with journal D is that journal files aren't in plain text. Do I miss that? Yeah, a little. I'm sort of a Linux boomer at heart, and I like to use awk for everything. It was nice, it was convenient that you can use all of these regular tools for going through the files. You still can, it's just an extra step now because they are that binary format, so you need to take it out of the binary format, and then you can do the other stuff. However, I really like having one place to send standard out and standard dir. Have you ever leveraged custom fields when writing logs to the journal natively? I attach notify slack equals 1 to some of my services and listen to my lab's log stream for these events and forward them to a Slack channel to see logs I want more easily. It's great. And are you aware that part of the reason your journal files are in a binary format rather than plain text is because Journal D is compressing them transparently? That default choice is probably saving exabytes of space in aggregate across the entire computing space. Locally, maybe it's not that much unless you have a very long-running system keeping very big logs around. But across all of the Linux systems out there, yeah, I think that would be reasonable to say. We can still live tail logs, we can still forward log stream to different servers, and services can now reliably trust that their output will be captured during runtime. These are all just net good things. Let's talk timers. The old method of doing that would be your cron script. And, if you want to talk about something that is the most legible over its predecessor, this might be one of them. Now, a lot of you probably know what this means here. 0, 0, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. But if you look at this as someone who has no idea what the cron format is, this is garbage. This is gibberish and doesn't mean anything, and there's no way to understand it just by looking at the format. If you want to understand it, you got to dig through the man pages and look at how the format actually works. And it's easy to understand once you get it. It's just an extra hurdle that, unless you're really actively messing with it, you're going to forget it. But then you see on calendar daily. That makes sense? Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Or on calendar minutely. Yes, is that a word? No, the grammar police won't like it. But it doesn't matter because you know what minutely means. There has not been a single time I've written a cron script without going and looking at one of those cron calculators that tells me exactly how often something is going to run. I'm sure if I wrote them more often, yeah, I would be able to memorize how the format works. I don't write timers that often that I really care to memorize it though. So for most people who are not doing this every day, this is just annoying, frankly. Persistent equals true is a great tool to ensure you don't miss timer executions. This is basically a way to make it so if your system is powered down, if your system is unavailable for some reason and is not able to run that timer, once that time has passed, the next time the system is available, then it's going to be run. It's going to make sure that timer is executed at some point. Systemctl list-timers is an excellent way to see everything scheduled on a machine. And the scheduling flexibility of on-calendar equals and on-active-second equals are both powerful and easy to understand. Of course, the cron format is also incredibly powerful. That's what it is, though. It is incredibly powerful, but the readability isn't necessarily there. Socket activation. Of course, the author is a Nix user. The Nix daemon leverages this to great effect by lazily running only when you need it. The daemon will stop when you aren't building anything, but as soon as you ask for it, nixdaemon.socket will start nixdaemon.service. That's a great feature. True to form, systemd even provides the systemd socket proxyd executable to bridge the gap for services that may not speak the native protocol yet. I leverate? I think that's supposed to say leverage this trick with heavy-handed daemons like Minecraft servers to great effect. I don't need to alter the original daemon at all, but systemd socket proxyd lets me leverage socket activation to run it on demand anyway. When you glue together the various unit types, service, path, timer, mount, socket, and so on, you can almost create a state machine out of your system. Expressing system configuration like mount as mount units lets you correctly order a daemon that needs a network mount to function. Triggering a service to restart when a file change is easy with a path unit. The variety of options available to a service unit are mind-boggling and address almost every need you can think of. Seriously. Did you know that condition virtualization can be used to run a unit depending on whether you're in AWS or Docker, for example? That's crazy. And sure, maybe you're not going to use this. Completely understandable. You're not doing cloud stuff. You're not doing web virtualization. Understandable. But at the same time, that is a massive industry for using Linux. And Linux desktop is actually kind of a tiny part of Linux, but even on the desktop, right? Like, even as a regular desktop user, there are still reasons why these things, obviously maybe not this one, but why a lot of the other functionality might be useful to you. If you've written a non-trivial number of service units, then you know the options available for hardening services are vast in number. Personally, my problem is remembering what these options are. Did you know that systemd built tools to help you with that too? Each one of these explains some operational security benefit you can wrap a daemon with, and in most cases, they're easy to add and don't break functionality. These are a great way to take advantages of features easily. So here is a big list of all the things you can add, and obviously, there are other ways that things can be documented, and most tools have documentation, right? Like, that's not a surprising thing. But having it right there and easily being able to analyze services that exist and then what they're actually using, that's really nice and that's really convenient. Now, the reason why the author made this post is because of Reddit posts like this one. It's on the Arctic subreddit, so, you know, it's a distro that people don't like systemd, and this is the name of the person. This is the name of the person who made the post. So it's pretty on brand. Anyway, I'll leave it linked down below if you want to read the comments on here. But here's the actual post. I used to think that systemd was made as the default and adopted by most distros because of its ease of use and the fact that it supplied a whole bunch of things in one suite, and I see where the appeal is. Now, that is the reason why it was adopted, right? Like, you got to the correct reason, and then you're like, no, that's actually not the correct reason. Then they used Arctic's OpenRC, and I'm just lost on why they decided to use systemd when OpenRC is objectively better when it comes to being an init system and managing services, and all of the other components of the systemd suite can be replaced. Like, why would they do this? So here's the fun thing about saying that they can be replaced. Like, that also means they can be replaced with systemd. Like, that's not like an argument, right? Like, systemd replaced them, and you can replace them back with post-systemd. Like, yeah, that's typically how a migration works. And we've gone over all of those points throughout the video, so go back and watch the video again if you don't understand why there might be value in this. Now, does that mean it's perfect? Does that mean there's no drawbacks of using systemd? Absolutely not. Anyone telling you that this is just objectively better in every single situation and there's not some value in using things like OpenRC, they are lying to you. There is still value in it, otherwise people wouldn't be using it. Now, does the value of OpenRC outweigh what systemd might give you? Well, clearly the distro maintainers have decided that no, systemd does make things easier for them. It does make things better for them. This isn't some like grand conspiracy where Red Hat controls Arch Linux and Ubuntu and every other distro. Like that's like not how this works. It was adopted because it was doing something. It was filling a niche that these maintainers felt like it wasn't being filled by what they already had. And for everything that systemd does, I'm shocked that there aren't more vulnerabilities. Of course, there are CVEs. Everything's going to have CVEs. I have no hard numbers supporting this claim, but I do wonder what the delta is between exploits due to systemd itself and exploits blocked by the service sandboxing that systemd provides. The ease of dropping an executable in an unprivileged environment is a great feature. The industry as a whole is almost assuredly safe with the accessibility to process sandboxing that systemd brought down to an easier level. Yeah, systemd boot and systemd networkd do different things. Frankly, my life as an operator has been significantly better thanks to the quality of software that comes out of the systemd suite, and they're all configured in a similar way too. I've integrated at a low level with systemd APIs as well, and it's not as if the scary sounding sprawl is closed either. The APIs are there, you can use them. This is actually the really big thing, right? Like, people say, oh, well, why can't you take things from the systemd suite and then replace them with other tools? You can, like, everything is documented. If somebody wanted to make a tool that you could fit into the systemd suite and pop something out, like, all of that stuff is documented. Somebody can do it if that's what they feel like doing. And in certain parts of the system, that does exist. Now, one thing that is very true is a lot of the systemd tooling isn't actually used by anyone besides systemd devs. There is a lot of stuff that just hasn't been adopted in basically any distro, and even then, a lot of the systemd devs don't use it because they're using regular distros, and outside of developing that tooling, there's no one's using it. Like, it's... If nobody's adopted the tooling after a long time, I think you have a problem in some cases where is there any reason to like work on this tooling? But most importantly, Red Hat is trying to control the Linux ecosystem with systemd. Very true, brother. Very true. This is absolutely true. I can't believe we, the system-y globalist Illuminati, have been exposed. Anyway. Are you someone who doesn't use systemd? I'd actually like to know why, right? If you use OpenRC, not because you just happen to use OpenRC, but like you've actually actively chosen to use it or another init system, I want to know why. Like, what is it about systemd that you don't like? Not just, oh, I don't like it because I don't like it. Like, actually, what is the reason for it? Why do you not like it? What is it doing that you don't like? What is the old system, the other system you're using, doing better? I would like to know. This is not like an attack on you. You're allowed to use it. It's your computer. But I'm curious. Anyway, if you liked the video, go like the video. Let me know your thoughts down below and go subscribe to the video. If you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scribes Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I'm going to replace my red hat with a tinfoil hat. Like this.